What is going to be the role of a product manager in the product building phase in an AI native product development environment? Are they going to act as a feature PMs where they are responsible for the end-to-end delivery of the feature, right from the requirements gathering to launching in the market? Are we going to see a completely different formation of the product management teams in an AI native product space? I'm going to talk about some of the key ways the teams can get organized and some of the key roles that product managers have to play. Some of it is fundamental to the core product management function, and some of it are really new and emerging as this AI momentum is gathering pace. In the last episode, we discussed the future of product development organization, and essentially it's going to be the intersection of the product management, design and engineering, and we are going to see a lot of growth in that sweet spot of all the three functions intersecting. However, we also would continue to see the product professionals at edges of the circle. So for example, we will continue to have limited domain experts as product managers. Similarly, we will have super technical folks at the edge of the engineering and highly specialized UX designers who are bringing in new paradigms of user experience. So now let's zoom into the product manager and see the spectrum of capabilities that they would carry in this new AI era. Whether it's a greenfield startup idea or it's an incumbent product which has a number of customers, which is reimagining itself in the AI native world, you will see product managers with different backgrounds. There might be PMs who are domain experts, highly having deep insights about the problem space and the domain. There could be product managers who were engineers at the beginning of the career, slowly developed the taste for product management and have a very deep insight about the design and architecture around the product building. And there could be new product managers who just have begun their career. And so these are the kinds of people that you will see in a product management team. So in an AI native space, do all of these product managers have a role to play? Absolutely, yes. So the interesting part of this AI native world is still there are traditional elements of product management that needs to happen, which is for the core problem definition, taking the problem into a product idea and then building a business case are going to continue to exist. However, all of these now have AI angle that have emerged, which needs to be factored in. So that means the formation of the team should consider having a very diversified profile of the product managers. Like you should still have domain experts, you should still have tech and architecture savvy PMs, you should still have young PMs who are very interested in exploring the AI tools. So that combination is what would really help in building a successful AI products. In an AI native product development scenario, we are looking at least 4 categories of product management role. Number 1, core product management fundamentals driven roles. Second, AI native product management roles. Third is QA and product validation related product management roles. Fourth is coordinator / custodian product management roles. So all these 4 categories can further be analyzed and divided into specific roles, which I'm going to talk about. And 2 patterns are going to happen. So there would be PMs who are super good in specific categories, and there might be multiple AI projects that are running in parallel, which are competing for a smaller pool of product managers. So we are going to look at how do we optimize these constraints and also be very successful in terms of coming up with the AI product. The first category of the PM roles in an AI native product building is the core PM fundamentals related roles. So here I'm looking at least 3 roles in this area. One is framer, second being the researcher, third being a functional champion. Framer is a person who builds the business case for the product and is a person who assesses the problem space, identifies opportunities, develops clarity around what needs to be solved, and then builds the business case for the product idea. The second is the researcher, who is focusing on going deep into the problem space in the form of doing market analysis, customer discovery, and develop deep insights about the problem that is being solved. The third is the functional champion, who basically takes on the framed product idea and all the insights that are generated from the research into units of functional areas within that product space, which I'm calling it as a functional space, and break down that problem in terms of building clarity on how to solve that, approach solving that. So this requires the PM to have a deep knowledge about the domain, at the same time have design thinking in terms of converting those problems into new paradigms, new concepts, new principles, and new assumptions, so that you're taking one step closer to actually developing a full-fledged solution architecture. Now, moving on to the next category, which is the AI native product management roles. So, the AI native applications have a workflow component that needs to work on an agentic AI tools. There is going to be components on sourcing the data. There's going to be components around the designing the user experience. And there is also going to be components around synthesizing the domain specific data for actually validating the models, right? So combining all these, I can clearly see the following roles in an AI native product management capacity. One is being a modeler. So this is a person who adapts to the agentic AI tools being used in the product development, take the concepts developed by the functional champions into that agentic AI tool, converting them into the agentic structures, understanding where it's part of the agent versus where it's not part of the agent, and then delving into prototyping and testing out elements of the agentic workflows. You're developing key prompts, and then starting to partner with engineering teams to evolve the whole agentic model. So the modeler essentially is the person who is very hands-on and savvy about the agentic AI tools, also has a very good grasp of the functional concepts and the problems being solved. So that's the role of a modeler. The second role is a data architect. Any AI native application, especially in a B2B SaaS environment, is heavily dependent on data. And the data coming in from external sources into the application, it could be the data generated within the application through various processing. And the agentic application might be trying to automate the transaction processing, or might be trying to query the data that is already processed by the application. In all of these scenarios, the data architect needs to have a very deep understanding of the data model and the data that can be served into the agent's workflows, and what is the current availability and what are the gaps essentially in the product being envisioned. So very strong and deep appreciation for the whole architecture and the data model behind the application. The next role of a designer in an AI native application, the traditional GUI based design has to coexist with a modern agentic chatty experiences. So it's important that the designer is able to map out the various functional use cases as user journeys and be able to transform those concepts into key experience elements, bring in outside in ideas, especially the user experience in an agentic world is evolving very fast, rapidly. So you have to bring in outside in ideas and then still partner with the UX and the design teams. The other challenge this person has to manage is in terms of balancing between ultimate North Star experience versus what needs to be part of the early release cycles, the MVP and MVP plus once releases as you launch the product in the market. And then the next role is of a data strategist. So the core of AI native application is the use of LLMs. There is going to be functions which are very deterministic. There is going to be functions which are going to leverage LLM, and it may not be that deterministic. It's going to have a high level of agency applied through the LLM interpretations. So it's important to synthesize the domain specific data sets that particular product is solving for and put through the model and see the behavior and the results that the model is giving, because that's going to be the more high agency your product is getting into. It's more important to synthesize the domain data, the various flavors of the domain data, to understand the behavior and the results coming from the models. So this data strategist is someone who has a very deep knowledge of the domain and also has an appreciation for various scenarios in that domain space that needs to be generated for the variations in the real world as a test bed or a knowledge base, so that the models can pressure tested for the behavior. The next category of product management skill is that of core testing and validation. So here, product managers who are more optimized for testing, validation, an eye for finding gaps in the design, an eye for going deep in terms of validating the functional outcomes. So those are the kinds of people will fit into this space. I can see there are two possible roles in this category. One is of a QA architect. So this is a person who actually focuses on developing approaches to functionally test the solution, and how do we embed the testing practices along the AI product development. So a main shift here is that unlike a traditional design where there's going to be a development phase and there's a unit testing later on and integration testing and then the functional testing, in an AI kind of an environment, high quality testing is required right when the development happens. So this QA architect is an important person who needs to devise the strategy in terms of how we can embed and automate high quality functional testing and validation throughout the process, right from the coding phase through all the way to the final testing. So automation is central to this role. Mindset for automating, mindset for generating synthetic data that is proposed by the data strategist, and how we can infuse that in various development lifecycle points. And then the next role is a testing role or a tester, which is a traditional role. It has existed. It will continue to exist. In addition to all the automation, humans have to be part of testing an AI product. So you as an end user are going to be testing the solution across the various happy paths, the outliers, the negative testing, and so on. So that's a continuing role. The last role I want to introduce is the role of a coordinator and a custodian. One of the challenges in the AI native product development is going to be multiple layers of work. And each of those layers of work may not be happening at the same time. For example, you might be much faster in developing the UX designs. However, you might be still iterating through the prompts in your agentic tools. So your agentic tools may not be mature enough. And what that means is that what you had envisaged as a set of capabilities, all of it may not be functional, even though the UX might have the placeholders, but it may not function because the prompts are not ready or the prompts are not maturing. So there are going to be multiple moving parts, and at any point in time during the development, there will be something that's not complete or that's not functional. So this custodian product manager is someone who meticulously tracks the moving parts and at any point in time is able to identify and say, hey, these are all things that are supposed to work, not working. These are all the things we know it's not working. It's not going to work now. It's going to come up solved later in the next sprint or the next iteration. So as a custodian, this is slightly different from a program management. It's not program management or a project management or a scrum master. It's basically the person is a conscious keeper of the product outcome. And by the time the product is exposed to the market, whether it's for early adoption or for general availability, this person makes sure that everything that needs to be there for that release is there in the product. So all through the execution phase, this person keeps track of all the moving parts, the dependencies, and how it needs to be adjusted in the prompt. For example, a particular capability may be coming in the next release, but however, you might want to have a response in your AI app saying that you need to have a response in functionally for a particular scenario that is going to be handled in the subsequent release. So how are you going to handle that? You might have to place a prompt to elegantly handle that as something that's not supported now. But later on, when the next iteration of the product happens, that's going to be supported, then the prompt has to be refactored to say it's no longer a case. So there are so many feature function level things that are going to be there deep inside the product in multiple places, in the form of UI, in the form of prompts, in the form of tools, in the form of APIs. So this custodian or the coordinator role, product manager, has to track all of them coming together as the product gets ready for the release. Now that we have seen the different roles, just to recap, the role of a framer, researcher, and functional champion in the category of core PM fundamental roles, and then the modeler, the data architect, the designer, and the data strategist in the AI native product management roles, the QA architect and the tester in the core testing and validation role, and then the coordinator or the custodian, which is a net new role in the AI native product development. So with all of these roles now on the other side, you have the pool of PMs who are having different flavors of skills: domain experts, architecture oriented, people who are very savvy about AI tools, and so on. So now the task is, how do we form the team which complements each other, right? So in a traditional world, one PM would have taken end-to-end responsibility, but in this new world, a domain expert cannot be a modeler. A designer may not be a great QA architect role. Domain expert may also be great as a data architect. So this combination of how do we connect the dots here and then assemble a team where all of these roles are covered by the pool of people that are available. So for example, let's say there are 2 AI projects going on. You might have a domain expert playing the role of only a framer and a researcher in both the projects. He may not have to go into the other roles all the way and complete the delivery. There might be another person who is like an super savvy modeler, can be just playing the role of a modeler in both the AI projects, right? And then solving for the agentic structures in the best possible way. Along the same lines, you can also have one PM doing multiple roles in a same project, like a person who's very architecture bent can be the modeler, the data architect, as well as the QA architect. So the idea is, how do we form a portfolio of roles for a given PM within or across various AI projects in a product space? And with that approach, you're kind of making the team very much contributing in the best possible way. And it also encourages the team to look at opportunities to expand their strength. For example, a person who is very strong in the domain, who's doing the role of a researcher and the functional champion, can expand into and becoming a modeler the moment he learns the AI tools. To conclude, if you are a product manager working in an AI native product space, look at the role that you're performing today within this framework and look at the overall composition of the team and where are the opportunities for you in terms of leveraging your skills in different capacities. At the same time, what are all the roles that you can expand into and set yourself up for a growth path? Thanks for watching this video. Please do share your comments and feedback and any suggestions for the topics you would like me to cover. Thank you.